I've got a lot going on, including, of course, the dreaded Somalians.
It's true. A Somali fraud ring in Minnesota stole over $1 billion from Medicaid. How did this happen? Well, Medicaid programs are run by the states, which in Minnesota means the Tim Walz administration. Governor Walz and the state's other Democrats rely on Somali votes to get elected, so they decided to look the other way because they were afraid of, quote-unquote, political backlash. Don't take my word for it. That's what a Somali-American fraud investigator told the New York Times.
That's right. That is, of course, Dr. Mehmet Oz, and he is the administrator for Medicare and Medicaid services for the Trump administration. And he put out a video over the weekend. And, you know, they're talking about anywhere from the original estimates were $250 million. Now it's up to $2.5 billion. We're talking about this earlier. Some people are saying that this Somalian fraud in Minnesota, don't you know, could be $10 billion when it's all said and done. But that is why they're still looking at all of this. The investigation does continue. I mean, it seems to me like the sky is going to be the limit as far as what we end up finding out.
When these scammers realized that nobody was guarding the cash register, they went gangbusters. One program designed to provide housing stabilization assistance to patients ballooned to $104 million, when 4 years ago it was projected to cost only $2.6 million. Some of these taxpayer funds may have even ended up in the hands of a Somalian terrorist group. Scary stuff. When CMS became aware of the housing program situation, Minnesota insisted it could clean up its own mess. A few months ago, it admitted it could not. So we stepped in to shut down the fraud-infested housing initiative.
And who was in charge of that initiative? We know that Tim Walz, even though he said, he's been out there saying, of course, Governor Tim Walz from Minnesota, they've been saying that, oh, yeah, we helped clean it up. They really didn't. He has been saying, oh, yeah, we put people in jail. We cleaned things up. We fixed the mess at the state level. That is actually not true. I mean, we talked about this incessantly since all of this broke. Tim Walz actively shut down the whistleblowers. They looked the other way. They allowed all of this to happen, whether we're talking about the rampant immigration fraud in Minnesota or the fraud with the finances and the COVID funding. Now, remember, these are federal funds, so the Trump administration is looking at all of this, and he actually reached out to Tim Walz, and the Trump administration reached out to Tim Walz, reached out to the state, who said, no, we've got this, but clearly they didn't. And to listen to Dr. Oz, part of this, and we mentioned this last week, where they're afraid of the Somalians. They're afraid of the Somalians because why? Because if you don't get the Somalian vote, then you can't win Minnesota or Minneapolis. And if you can't win Minneapolis, you can't win Minnesota. So obviously that is why Tim Walz and the Democrats have looked the other way.
Did you happen to see Ilhan Omar on the Sunday show? She was on Face the Nation.
It's funny you should ask that,
you have
Joan.
This audio. This is
I've got that coming
classic.
Up. All right, let me finish, and then we can talk about her. This is one last cut from Dr. Oz talking about all this.
Today, we're taking action on more than a dozen other programs, which I've outlined in the post below. Our message to Walz is clear. Either fix this in 60 days or start looking under your couch for spare change, because we are done footing the bill for your incompetence. This administration will never stop fighting to protect the vulnerable Americans who rely on these programs and the taxpayers who fund them. We're going to crush waste, fraud, and abuse.
There you go. That is Dr. Oz. And I got to tell you, he's right. So Trump's administration is now demanding the following. Provide CMS with weekly updates on how the state is stopping fraud. That's number one. Number two, freeze enrollment of all high-risk providers for 6 months. Number three, confirm all providers in place are legitimate or remove them. And four, send CMS a corrective action plan on how these will prevent this from happening again. Now, don't forget, again, all the immigration-related fraud, all these folks married to their relatives and such, it is horrifying, and it is so incredibly rampant. The left and the media continue to hide behind their You know what I would call it? I would call it faux outrage. I think that's what I would call it. And when I say faux outrage, here's what I mean by that. I mean that they're all talking about, oh my God, I can't believe that Donald Trump called the Somalians garbage. Well, number one, let's not forget that Joe Biden actually called Trump supporters garbage. We all remember that. But number two, let's focus on a silly, stupid word as opposed to this rampant theft, because obviously there is a ton of theft that is going on with these Somalians. And really, you look at the land of opportunity. This is what I would say about America. America is supposed to be the land of opportunity so people are able to take advantage of all of the opportunities that America affords immigrants. It's not supposed to be the land of opportunity to commit fraud and break immigration laws. But that is literally what's happening. So now Scott Bessent, of course, remember that he is the IRS commissioner, right? So among many other things, a Treasury Secretary, I guess IRS commissioner as well. So he is involved in all of this. But there's a number of different investigations that are going on right now. By the way, the very latest on ICE in Minnesota, they're targeting the Somalians in Minnesota. People are saying, oh, my goodness gracious, they're targeting the Somalians because of their skin. Well, they're looking for people that have broken immigration laws. So it makes sense that they would be pulling over Somalians, but whatever. ICE has now stepped up their immigration enforcement campaign in Minnesota. They've arrested at least 19 people. They call it Operation Metro Surge, and it is going to continue this week. They started with the worst of the worst. I would call it the easy arrests, right? The ones who have prior convictions. But, they're ramping it up. They're stepping it up. And I believe that they should. Because if you got a bunch of people out there in Minnesota and really anywhere, and I don't care where they're from. They can be from Somalia. They can be from Honduras. They can be from wherever. I don't care. If they're committing fraud, they need to be arrested and they need to be sent packing. But you have several investigations that are going on. You've got House Oversight. You have Dr. Oz and, again, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And, yes, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is involved in this investigation as well. In Minnesota.
A lot of money has been transferred from the individuals who committed this fraud, including those who donated to the governor, donated to Representative Omar, and donated to A.G. Ellison. But they've been transferred to something called MBSs. These are money the Bureau services, and they are wire transfer organizations that are outside the regulated banking system. And that money has gone overseas. And we are tracking that both to the Middle East and to Somalia to see what the uses of that have been.
Well, yeah, the question is, did that money go to al-Shabaab? The New York Times reported on the fraud. Christopher Rufo and others have reported that money did indeed go to al-Shabaab, a terrorist organization. Do you know what I love in this next clip? Margaret Brennan, you're going to hear her say, well, do you have any evidence that this money went to al-Shabaab? These are conservative journalists, right? Have you noticed that when they talk about the New York Times, just as a 5-second side, so have you noticed that whenever they're talking about the New York Times or the Washington Post, they never try to discredit those platforms as liberal journalists, but they do try to disparage and discredit more conservative journalists by calling them conservative.
It's always one way.
It's always one way, isn't it, Joan?
Mm-hmm.
Representative Omar tried to downplay it, said, "Oh, it was very, it was very tough to know how this money should be used." Yeah. She was gaslighting the American people.
Well, we'll talk to her.
Yeah, but when you come to this country, you got to learn which side of the road to drive on. You got to learn to stop at stop signs, and you got to learn not to defraud the American people.
Absolutely right. America is the land of opportunity, but not the land of opportunity to commit fraud, immigration fraud, and steal a bunch of money. So I guess the question is, what was the money used for? Some say terrorism. Others say no, that never happened. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see what happens. As I mentioned in the introduction to this segment, you're talking about $2.5 billion. Some people are saying this could go up to $10 billion. we'll have to wait and see where the investigation goes. But over the weekend, I don't know if you saw this, Joan, but over the weekend, we actually started seeing all these photos of these suspicious Somalians in Minnesota posing with the likes of Tim Walz and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison and others. Some of these people had actually been convicted. Others have been charged, et cetera. So it is clear that these folks who were committing this fraud or have been accused of committing this fraud, they were chummy with the governor and the attorney general. Now, you heard Scott Bessent, who, again, is part of the investigation, mentioned Ilhan Omar, who, in my opinion, looks guilty as heck. And this answer to CBS didn't help any. She was asked about the charges against those in her community. That is what got my attention. Listen to this.
The 87 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also, as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Are you? Because I don't hear you taking any responsibility for the people that you represent. I also don't hear you mentioning in this clip, but you have said it many times, that your main focus is Somalia and not America. So she never really answers the question, and that just really angers those covering the story because, she's not mentioning the fact that, there have been a lot of Somalians that have been arrested for this fraud, the financial fraud, let alone the immigration fraud. I mean, this is something that President Trump and the Trump administration, they are focusing on, and they should be focusing on this. Donald Trump has made a lot of very pointed comments about the fraud, saying the Somalians come here, they do nothing but complain, and that they should go back to Somalia and fix it. Let's not also forget that all that money that the Somalians are sending back to Somalia, and who knows where it goes from there. Also, by the way, President Trump has had some very critical things to say about Ilhan Omar, and of course, she doesn't like it.
It's disgusting. It's completely disgusting. These are Americans that he is calling garbage. And we feel like there is an unhealthy obsession that he has on the Somali community and an unhealthy and creepy obsession that he has with me. I think it is also really important for us to remember that this kind of hateful rhetoric and this level of dehumanizing can lead to dangerous actions by people who listen to the president.
Kind of weird, isn't it? After all those years of Trump is Hitler, a Nazi, white supremacist, and he's going to round up and kill Americans. Same with his supporters, right? That's what they say, of course, about our side. Now they understand. Now they understand the power of their usual brand of vitriol, and their nasty language led to not only 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump, but also the murder of Charlie Kirk. So I'm not going to be crying a river for no Ilhan Omar, simply not. And so the whole interview seemed to be very sympathetic to Ilhan Omar and the Somalian people, and that they are the ones that are victims and they are the ones that are under attack. And Ilhan Omar, she never really talks about the crimes that these Somalian people, immigration and otherwise, have been committed. And so, they touched on the criticisms of Stephen Miller and the Trump administration, where he's been calling out the outrage and the failure of the Somalians to assimilate into American culture. This is part of what she said.
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. And, you know, as we know, there have been many immigrants who have tried to come to the United States who have turned back, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, you know, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans. Yeah. We are citizens. We are productive.
So she says that they're productive. They've been ripping off Americans, actually. She has said, oh, you know, you just heard her say there, we're here as Americans, but you have said many times that your priority is Somalia.
Yeah, and in fact, that's what the former prime minister of Somalia had to say, went viral the other day. The interests of Ilhan Omar are not the interest of Minnesota, nor is it the interest of Americans. The interest of Ilhan is that of the Somalian people and Somalia.
There you go. There you go.
About which, to her point about all those other immigrants, I don't remember any other instance of a different ethnic group needing a letter of excusal for not assimilating to the culture after being charged with the rape of a 12-year-old.
Yeah, we talked about that on Friday. Here's the other thing. There's a guy, I'll see if I can find it. There is a guy who went and spent the day with a bunch of Somalians in Minnesota. Did you see this online? And he spent the day with them, and a couple of things were discussed. Number one, their interests and their priorities definitely lie with Somalia. That's number one. And number two, they want to see Sharia law. They want to see Sharia law ushered in. Now, one of the things, as Ilhan Omar says, oh, well, you know, we Somalians, we're productive. Really? Because I keep seeing stats about how many Somalians are actually using government benefits or public benefits. Apparently, it's a lot. Now, I can't seem to track down something official, but I've seen anywhere, depending on the source, 55 to 80% are on some sort of government benefits. So that doesn't seem very productive to me. So the Somalia thing does continue. By the way, Tim Walz is very upset because people are now driving by his home and calling him retard, and they're posting it on social media. Coming up, I cannot wait to get your opinion on the latest reason why Candace Owens says that she is not showing up to the Turning Point USA show, where they were going to converse face to face on the accusations made.
Yeah.
You're not going to believe this. But first, we have been bucking the company-mandated Christmas music because it's terrible. So coming back from the bottom of the hour break every time, we are playing our own. I played mine in the 5, and Joan played hers in the 6, and now this is Sam's contribution for today. Is this really Nelson? No. Oh, Lord.
Oh, boy.
All righty. Very good. Thank you, as always, Sam. It's always an adventure with Sam, isn't it?
Yes.
All right. Real quick. By the way, what is that, Sam, real quick?
Santa Ate a Gummy by Tim O'Brien and Ben Winship.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And, okay, so latest on Candace Owens. Number one, why am I talking about this? Well, I'm talking about this because one of the things that I've noticed is that my conservative friends keep talking to me about it. And so I will admit, again, I've done a few segments on this. I don't do, real deep dives into this. But, Tim Pool, I need some video here. Tim Pool said something interesting that we all spoke about last week.
And she is a scumbag, okay? And she's getting worse every day. We're going to lose the midterms. Then we're going to lose in 2028. And it's because she's a piece of She says the stupidest, retarded crap. And now everybody's running around divided and broken.
All right, so that is Tim Pool.
He uses retard.
He did use the term retard.
Yeah.
Now, if you haven't been keeping track, I mean, Candace Owens, she's talking about, the murder of Charlie Kirk. She claims that, among other things, Egyptian airplanes have been tracking Erica Kirk for the last few years, and that these airplanes were present at the Utah airport the day of the shooting. She suggesting there was obviously some foreign involvement. She claims there were multiple shooters. She says that things don't add up. She claims that Charlie Kirk was betrayed by those within leadership at Turning Point, and she's accusing them of suspicious behavior or a cover-up. Now, here's the thing. Erica Kirk is now head of Turning Point. So Candace Owens is literally attacking Erica Kirk. She is also throwing some suspicions at the Utah Valley's soccer team for wearing hoodies the day of the shooting, which I don't really understand that. She is also implying that Israel or Israeli donors were behind the assassination, and she now claims that her critics want her killed. And so now you have people calling out Candace Owens, right? Crazy, sociopath, narcissist, trying to capitalize on Charlie Kirk's death, psycho. I mean, all of these things. By the way, her supporters, some of her supporters are really, really passionate. I've heard some of them call, for example, Chris Hand. And I think a while back I got a phone call or two. I know that last time I talked about her with any great depth, I got some nasty hate mail and some text messages as well. But here's the thing. Number one, not to belabor the point, but Turning Point said, all right, we're going to take you up on the offer anytime, anywhere. She said, after they said, okay, we're going to do it on this date at this time, she came back and she said, nope, not going to do it. Just can't make it. Do you know what she is now saying? She is now saying, I kid you not, that her husband is forbidding her to go.
Oh, come on.
Do you really believe in that household that her husband is going to be the guy that says, I forbid you to go? I'm reasonably certain that Candace Owens would not put up with that kind of whatever, controlling patriarchal behavior. You know what I mean? Like Candace Owens is the kind of woman, in my opinion, where if you try to tell her what to do, she's going to do the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. So I don't believe for a millisecond that Candace Owens' husband has that much power over her. Now, if she just decided that she didn't want to go because she, number one, can't back up all of these accusations that she's made, then I think that's probably, in my estimation, number one, that's why she didn't go. Number two, she can say, well, I didn't go because I'm worried about, being assassinated or whatever it is. And she can elongate this whole thing. Because, Chris pointed out last week that Candace Owens, she is now, I don't know what it is now, but last week she was beating Joe Rogan. She's now the number one podcaster. So you've got all of these, whether it's Tim Pool or whether it's Candace Owens or all of these other people, they're all sort of jumping into the fray because there is, I guess, a vacuum of voices with Charlie Kirk's death. I don't know. But they're all competing in this podcast area. And so everybody's trying to jump in and get some followers and get the clicks and get all of that kind of stuff. And so I think that is also part of it. But now stuff's getting real because shots have been fired. Actual shots. So now Tim Pool, I just played you his audio. Tim Pool, one of the most vocal critics of Candace Owens, says that someone shot at his home over the weekend, Friday night. Did we figure out, does he live in Maryland? I think he says, Joan says that he lives in Maryland.
I'm going to check it out.
Check that, because you said that earlier, Joan, and I just want to make sure that I'm not spreading fake news. So he says that over the...
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Sorry, yeah.
So Tim Pool says that there have been shots fired at his home in West Virginia. Luckily, no one has been hurt, and he has turned it over to the authorities. Now, I don't believe that he came out and he said that Candace Owens supporters were the ones that did it. Candace Owens, I'm sure she'd be the first one to say that she does not advocate for that kind of behavior. But that is just another layer to the story that is this clear divide within the Republican Party. I want to address something else that is going on with this. Because remember what Tim Pool said. I'm going to play this one more time.
And she is a scumbag, okay? And she's getting worse every day. We're going to lose the midterms. Then we're going to lose in 2028. And it's because she's a piece of shit. She says the stupidest, retarded crap. And now everybody's running around divided and broken.
All right, so divided and broken. And we're going to lose the midterms. We're going to lose in 2028. Has anybody ever thought that she's working with the Democrats? That this could be kind of like a psyop where she's working, because let's face it, she has been rejected by Charlie Kirk. She was rejected by Ben Shapiro in the Daily Wire and Turning Point USA. So she's been rejected. And there's a lot of people who were supporters of hers when she was, theoretically a conservative, supposedly a conservative, whatever. She was espousing conservative values anyway. And now those people have sort of stepped back away from that support. And so I'm just wondering, and this is some sort of a Democrat psyop where they're partnering with and working with Candace Owens to divide the Republican Party to help them in the midterm elections. Hell, George Soros may be even involved. I don't know. And I don't know this for a fact, but none of this makes sense. But I do believe that there is a big time, Tim Pool is right. There is a big time divide within the Republican Party. So whether or not she is crazy, a sociopath, a narcissist, trying to capitalize on Charlie Kirk's death, is she psycho? Is she a grifter? I was talking to a friend of mine who I very much respect, and she said, she keeps going back and forth. That's actually an interesting question. Is Candace Owens a big-time grifter? Or has she just completely lost her mind? And I don't know which one it is. I don't pretend to know. I used to be a big-time fan of Candace Owens, and then she just went a little bizarre. So now I don't know. I don't know if she's just trying to get clicks and engagement. But I believe that one of the things that she said is that she has not made any money off this whole conversation regarding, the real truth behind Charlie Kirk's death. But of course, when you go from, a few million followers to, I think she's up to 10 million or something like that, you do capitalize on those podcasts. You do. You can make revenue, serious revenue, when you're up to that kind of money. So now the question is, okay, so number one, is this some sort of a Democrat-run psyop with Candace Owens? And who's behind it? And again, I don't have any proof, but I could just say this: I can make crap up just like Candace Owens. So that's number one. Number two, is George Soros behind this? I don't know. But we certainly know that psyops always happen, and sometimes they even work. So I don't know. Joan, you got an opinion? Sam, you got an opinion? Could this actually impact the midterm elections, number one? And number two, could this be a Democrat-run and funded psyop starring Candace Owens?
I think that is the most credible explanation for what's happening with Candace Owens, because it doesn't make any sense where she's going, other than her being certifiably nuts.
And remember,
right?
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
That's right. Whether it affects the midterms, that would be the goal, I guess, if you're right about this being a psyop. That would be the goal, to affect the midterms. Do anything to get under the skin of the Republicans and split everyone.
All right, what do you think?
I think it could, unless there's another movement, another, host out there that's going to push the midterms in a certain way, which we always see as they come around the corner, right? Saying that right now is one thing. I still think it could have an effect on it. I would not take the psyop route as much as I would just, I don't know. I saw the video up close. It's a pretty traumatic thing to watch that. And if you know the person involved in that, it's going to be even more traumatic. I think this may just be a playing out of the processing of everything that has happened, being in a similar role, being someone that could also be targeted or has been threatened by people before. I think this is just an unfortunate way of her dealing with it.
We'll have to see what happens. And of course, I'm getting all kinds of hate on the super text line. I get it. I'm trying to be neutral on this. Like, I'm the guy that has been saying for a long time that conspiracy theorists are just the ones that see the truth before anybody else, right? But if she's got evidence, she should do us all a favor and just bring it up, bring it forward.
Instead of just saying I said so and because I know. And
yeah, and my sources say, and I'll tell you, at the next podcast and all that kind of stuff.
And you wouldn't give out your sources if you think the French government's hiring an assassin to kill you.
So it is all just very interesting. And again, people keep asking me my opinion when I'm out, and I talk to Republican friends and on my my private messages and emails and all that. People want my opinion, so I'm giving it. I don't know what the truth is, and neither do you. Because you're not given any actual proof. And so until she gives any actual proof, then we just have to comment on what she is. And I have no ill will towards Candace Owens at all. I am going by what she has said and the evidence that she has put forward and what could be next.
I would say the reason it wouldn't affect midterms in that aspect, she's not talking about anything policy related whatsoever when it comes to this stuff. She is throwing out what she believes and is theorizing these things. She's not talking about, when it comes to manufacturing in the U.S. or when it comes to these tariffs. Right. She's not covering anything of actual
value,
policy importance when it comes to those elections. So possibly a non-factor.
But it is interesting, though. Well, yeah, I think what I said in the 5 o'clock hour, we'll see what happens when politicians start getting asked their opinion on all of this. And again, we'll have to see what happens. But, I would say for the sake of all of us, if she's got something, then let's bring it forward. Let's bring it forward and let's all deal with it. And I think that she does need to. And here's the deal. So if I'm working for Turning Point, then I say, okay, Candace, you said any time, any place, but you can't make it on that time or that place. Well, then you name the time. And maybe you do it in a, do you know what would be amazing? Oh, my goodness gracious. Candace Owens and the Turning Point people show up on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Ooh.
Can you imagine that, Joan?